Thematic tip of the iceberg for why you would want to hop up to C# scripts. And I want you to treat the C# scripts online as they are basically like little tiny pieces of Lego blocks. So what I've done is I've gone to hop to these basic C# scripts. These are extremely simple. Add one to each item, series and range nodes. All of these are hopped up scripts. So you literally grab one. I'm just going to focus on the first D section, which deals with assignments, with integer divisions, basic operators. And you go into one and you right-click on download and copy the link. So once you copy the link, you're able to go into, let's say, here's the object I've ended up making, which is all hopped up and jazzy, because that's what C# does, the basic G# node scripts. You need a script to start with. So what I'm going to do is take this little object and get rid of it and say, here's a script to start with. So not too hard. It's the basic subdivision node out of surfaces, Rhino 7. It's a polar array of a geometry going through Maelstrom. And then it's a curve created by nerves, and that's being driven by points, which have a little bit of cosine and sine involved in them. And then a range is putting out those numbers. So as long as you can make a basic script and you want to jazz it up, that's going to jump to an object like that pretty quick with a little bit of C# hopping up your script. So let's take the first one and just take that all to the original node and just hit disable. And let's wait for this one to come into play and how we actually made it. Before you make it, you just go in and you go hops crazy. Just grab a bunch of these. And once you have a bunch of shelf items, you can go in. Let's take a new one, say, or just grab one off the shelf. I just made a bunch of copies. We'll take that as the ungroup. That way I can come in and I can say, okay, well, what one did I just grab? Path. Whatever I got in the GitHub, I can paste in there. And then that node will be up and running. And here it is, takes an integer and double and converts it to integer and converts it to double. Not really one I wanted to use, but that's how you get it in there. So each one of these, I've basically gone in and taken the path and made links to what's on GitHub. I don't need anything on my home computer, nothing. This is one that adds a number to an existing number. What's nice is this keeps running. It's a list, keeps making. This takes not really integers. I have to set that right. This is actually start, step, stop, but produces a series and a range at the same time. This is an integer division. This is one that leaves you the remainder. This is the Boolean test that numbers are the same. And this is another script that basically, you can kind of tell by the node itself, gives you three numbers and increments higher. The number x increments it higher by y and increments it higher by z. And those are just basic scripts. So what I did was I jumped in here. I said, okay, where can I start applying these scripts? Where can I start putting in my hopped up C# nodes? And so I jumped back in that original script. I took a look here. I said, well, node sizes will be interesting to inform by going in and finding an integer division to two numbers parametric and leaving it with the inner division, which is 7. So it actually becomes a parametric kind of sizing of that node before this algorithm solves. What else did I do? I took the count. And I went in here and I thought, okay, the count, let's take the z increment and increment up x. So x is back here, and I incremented it up by itself again, which means I just doubled it, which isn't so exciting, but that was the count. And so you get this huge array that's actually driven off that data. Here I didn't do anything to unless I went in and I actually pulled the steps back to the integer division number, which was 7, just keeping parametric. And then here the domain, instead of I moved the domain to 8, which was the incrementing higher of x by y, which happened to be the integer division. I think x actually started, if I follow it back, all the way up here to 13. I thought I actually had it at 0. So that's all you're doing. You're applying a lot more C# scripting without having to script it into your script. You get these little pieces of Lego, as far as I'm concerned, that just make an effect on driving the data. So here's one that I took my series to drive the multiplication of the cosine, and all of a sudden that jazzed it up in the z direction. So in the end, I'm able to produce this pretty cool geometry that when all is said and done, and I leave Grasshopper, I have it already baked in here, and there you go. You get something worth rendering. Now, technically, those are probably surfaces and they're not solids, but it gives a nice decal. I like the little wobbliness that's happening down here. And if you can't see what you're doing, you can go in and check out. Oh, it's probably going to slow down and take a while to go from render into anything else because there's a lot of jazz going on in there. I might have to hit pause by that decides if it wants to do a nice rendering. Anybody who's experienced with Rhino and moving between technical and pen and ink and artistic, it's got to run that through a bunch of stuff. So I might hit pause. Let's see what happens. Pull that into a nice drawing. Take a look at that, possibly by moving this one into technical, this one into, let's say, pen and ink, and this one over into, maybe Arctic. So you get a nice sense of different renderings on what you've done. You've actually produced a pretty cool drawing. And what I've done is I hopped up that initial script. So basically generate something and realize that this is just the systematic tip of the iceberg of what you can do by hopping up your script. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you take a look at what I'm doing at Wickerson Studios. And anybody that wants to work with me and get me out of this crazy house with my 3 kids and sit me down in a nice office, I'll take that job. All right. Thank you very much.